The Earth is flat. Seriously, no joke. And more people are starting to believe it. You scroll through your feed, a person wearing glasses, sitting in front of a bookshelf, calmly explaining that the planet is actually a disk. The video runs an hour and a half, has 2 million views, and thousands of enthusiastic comments. You try to argue back, pointing to space photos, the International Space Station, GPS satellites that even now are showing you traffic on the street nearby. Then something strange happens. He shoots down every argument you make with just one phrase. Fake. A conspiracy. Footage staged in a studio. The main weapon of flat Earth supporters is their outright denial of all space programs, claiming they are massive fabrications. NASA, the Russian space agency, Chinese lunar rovers, India's mission to the moon's south pole, private companies, Elon Musk broadcasting live from Starlink satellites, all dismissed as a single elaborate hoax spanning 70 years. But wait, if countries that constantly compete and clash with each other every decade have somehow agreed to pull off a deception of this scale, that alone demands an explanation. We'll come back to that. But here's the problem. Right now, in this argument, you're defenseless. You hold all the evidence in your hands. Photos of the planet? Check. Calculations of orbits? Check. Live video calls with astronauts? Check. And all of it can be wiped away with a snap of a finger. It feels like playing chess against someone who suddenly claims your pieces were just drawn on the board. So you have to take a different approach. If your opponent refuses to accept any top-level data, your only honest move is to come back down to Earth. Literally. Find evidence that doesn't rely on rockets, satellites, or trusting an engineer from Houston. It doesn't even require trust in me, just something a person can see for themselves, stepping outside their front door after midnight, standing on their own balcony. There is proof staring right at us. It hangs overhead on every clear night, the starry sky. Free, endless, equally visible in Yakutsk, Cape Town, or any small town in between. A witness no one can accuse of colluding with agencies. Stars never sign contracts with NASA. The key is to ask the right question. Once we do, the answer will be so clear that no one could ever dismiss it as a fake. Above Moscow, Murmansk, and St. Petersburg, the night sky tells the same story every clear evening. The North Star holds almost perfectly still. Meanwhile, the other stars slowly trace arcs around it, moving counterclockwise. Ursa Major, Cassiopeia, Cygnus, each constellation draws a neat circle as the night unfolds. Set your camera on a tripod with a 4-hour exposure, and you'll capture streaks of light spiraling gently in one direction, to the left. You can see this for yourself tonight. No need to travel to the pole or visit an observatory. Just step outside after midnight, spot the Big Dipper, and watch where it shifts over a couple of hours. This scene repeats night after night, city after city, century after century. Ancient Greek astronomers observed the same motion recorded by 9th century Arab stargazers, the very motion you could capture on your phone last night atop a 5-story building in Kazan. Now, let's cross the equator. Cape Town, Buenos Aires, Perth. The North Star no longer hangs overhead, it's completely out of sight. Instead, the southern pole of the world takes its place as the center of rotation. This point is nearly empty, without a bright guiding star. Around it, the stars move in the opposite direction, clockwise. The same long exposures, the same spirals, only mirrored to the right. This is the crucial moment. The same night, the same sky, but two different halves of the planet, and the sky spins in opposite directions. To be precise, it's not the sky itself turning, but its apparent daily motion. Yet from the vantage point of an observer on a balcony, there's no difference. The most fascinating part isn't the observation itself. It's that nobody disputes it. Even flat Earth supporters accept this fact without argument. They shoot time-lapse videos in Australia, share them on their channels, and discuss them among themselves. Their forums have entire threads dedicated to southern star trails. The debate isn't about what's observed, but how to explain it. This creates a rare moment, a shared starting point, a place where both sides stand side by side, nodding in agreement. You don't even need to leave your home to verify it. There's a free program called Stellarium. It shows the actual position of stars for any date and location on Earth, accurate to fractions of a degree. Just enter the coordinates, speed up time, and in a minute, you see what the sky does over the course of an entire night. Let's mark 2 points. The first lies in the Arctic Circle near Murmansk. We'll call this Point A. The second sits near Cape Town at the southern tip of Africa, Point B. The same moment in time, 2 distant spots on the planet. Now we take a model and test which shape of the Earth produces exactly this view, a globe versus a flat disk. A straightforward experiment, no room for a tie. Let's take a globe. A simple classroom globe, worn Africa, the equator patched with tape. Now, stick a tiny camera right on top, near the Kola Peninsula, lens facing upward. Spin the globe. The camera records the ceiling, but here, the ceiling is really the sky, at least in our minds. We check the footage. Stars drift counterclockwise. It's a perfect match for Murmansk. Next, we move the camera to the opposite side, near Cape Town, this time lens pointing outward. Spin the globe the same way. The stars now move clockwise. A mirrored image. No tweaks, no adjustments. The globe passes both tests on the first try. No corrections, no assumptions, no what-ifs. One shape, one rotation, 2 opposite views, exactly like the 2 hemispheres of our real planet. Now, the disk. We take a round cutting board and place it flat. We position the camera at the imaginary north, closer to the center. Then we rotate the board. The ceiling lights move counterclockwise. They match perfectly. Next, we move the camera to the south at the edge of the disk. We spin it the same way. Once again, the camera shows movement counterclockwise. Not reversed, exactly the same. But wait, what if the board itself is what's rotating? Let's try a different setup. The board stays still, and above it, a dome, a frame with lights, rotates. With the camera in the center, the movement is counterclockwise. At the edge, still counterclockwise. No matter how we arrange it, the result is the same. The plane simply can't produce 2 opposite rotations. The geometry won't allow it. Here comes the second crack. From Murmansk at night, you can see the Big Dipper and the North Star. But from Cape Town, the Southern Cross and the Magellanic Clouds dominate the sky. More precisely, these patches of sky partially overlap, yet half of the constellations remain completely invisible to each other. On a globe, this resolves with a simple motion. The far side of the planet blocks part of the celestial dome, like a garden shed hiding a neighbor's yard beyond it. But on a flat Earth, every observer is supposed to see the same sky, just tilted at different angles. They're supposed to, yet they don't. Not in Cape Town, not in Sydney, not in Ushuaia. One explanation simultaneously raises 2 separate problems. The other explanation doesn't solve a single one. And this is just the beginning. If you build your argument on one false premise, that the Earth is flat, then every new observation demands a separate patch. Not a unified theory, just patches. One for each case. Take a ship, the oldest school example. An observer on the shore watches through binoculars as the ship sails into the open sea. At some point, it begins to disappear, but not just randomly. First, the hull vanishes, then the deck structures, then the mast. From bottom to top. You can see it with the naked eye. You can catch it through a lens in 30 seconds. Aristotle documented it centuries ago. Flat Earth supporters respond that it's just perspective. The ship simply becomes too small for the eye to distinguish. Makes sense? At first glance, yes. Except it doesn't. When an object shrinks because of distance, it disappears all at once. It turns from a point into a smaller point and then vanishes. It doesn't peel away from the waterline upward. There's one experiment that completely blows this whole idea out of the water. The ship disappears over the horizon. The binoculars don't help anymore. The funnel is gone, the masts vanish. But climb up to the rooftop of a nearby hotel, maybe the 20th floor, and suddenly the ship reappears, whole and clear. To be precise, the mast appears first, then the superstructure, and finally the hull. The sequence flips in reverse. On a globe, this makes perfect sense. The observer rises above the curve, peaking just a little bit farther. But on a flat surface, this simply can't happen. If an object disappears because of distance, no amount of height will bring it back into view. It's still just as far away. A tiny dot doesn't grow bigger just because someone stands on a chair. Next, a photo of Chicago. Anyone who's ever dived into this topic has seen this image. A silhouette of skyscrapers rises over Lake Michigan, shot from the opposite shore, about 30 miles away. Flat Earth believers share it with the caption, "You can see right through the city. Where's your curve?" The picture looks striking. Their argument holds up for about 10 seconds. But if you look at the same scene with fresh eyes and zoom in, the bottom third of the skyscrapers disappears. The towers are cut off at the horizon. You see only the tops, sometimes half the building, sometimes just a third. Willis Tower stands 440 meters tall, yet the photo shows only about 200 meters. Everything below hides behind the curve. Their main proof ends up being the clearest proof against them. You couldn't ask for a better demonstration of Earth's curvature. You need to sit with that for a moment. An argument that's been recycled for years, passed from video to video, flips around the moment you zoom in, and suddenly works for the other side. It only gets worse from there. Let's head toward the sun. According to their model, the sun is a small spotlight, just a few dozen miles across, hovering about 3,000 miles above the surface of a flat Earth. It circles around the disk. They explain sunsets by saying the sun moves to the other edge of the disk, and perspective shrinks it down to a point. But simple math falls apart here. If the spotlight drifts thousands of miles away, its visible size should shrink rapidly, from a coin to a tiny dot. Yet in the real sky, the sun's apparent size doesn't change at sunset or noon. It stays roughly the same disk, about half a degree wide. To be precise, it fluctuates slightly, about 1.5%, due to Earth's orbit around the sun. But that's nothing like what would happen if a spotlight were drifting away. In this system, the moon is just a small object off to the side. And here's the next point. If the moon is a tiny ball hovering above a flat disk, eclipses, both solar and lunar, should be impossible. There's nothing to block the light, and nothing to cast a shadow. Yet, eclipses happen with railroad-like precision. Predictions for 100 years ahead line up to the second. And there's one more detail that flat Earth proponents prefer to ignore. According to their model, an observer in Cape Town or Wellington sees the moon from a different angle, below from the disk's side. That means they should see the far side of the moon, the side no one on Earth has ever seen. But just one amateur astronomer in Sydney with a $200 telescope can debunk that. The amateur looks up and sees the exact same seas and craters as someone watching from Norway. That leaves one last thing: gravity. Here the carnival begins. If the Earth is a disk, then the ball, the planet, can't have gravity as we know it. So what keeps people stuck to the surface? Their main theory says this: the Earth isn't spinning, it's flying. Straight up, accelerating constantly at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's why your feet feel pressed into the ground. It sounds almost elegant, until you grab a calculator. 9.8 meters per second squared means that after just 1 year of this acceleration, the object would be nearing the speed of light. Not just in theory, right there on paper, in a simple high school calculation. And this is where the trick kicks in. To get around this problem, the theory's creators call on Einstein. The very same theory of relativity that's built on the idea of space being independent of a flat disk. They reject this theory everywhere, except for that one line where it saves them from breaking the speed of light barrier. But even if we ignore that, the facts tell a different story. If the Earth were simply accelerating, the rate of acceleration would have to be the same everywhere. Yet, it's not. Gravimeters, instruments geologists use to locate oil and mineral deposits, detect differences between the poles and the equator, between mountains and valleys. The variations are tiny fractions of a percent, but these small differences show up consistently, device after device, decade after decade. A spinning disk under constant acceleration can't produce that kind of detail. When this explanation starts to fall apart, a new idea steps in. It's not acceleration at all, but electromagnetism. The Earth holds us in place with a vast magnetic field. This isn't even up for debate. It's just everyday physics. If a magnetic field were strong enough to hold down all the water in the ocean and every person on Earth, not a single refrigerator in any kitchen would work. The magnets on the fridge doors would snap to the floor in a fraction of a second. A laptop's hard drive would turn into a brick before it even left the factory. Pacemakers would stop beating and kill their wearers. None of this happens. And here's a question that needs to be said out loud. To protect one initial assumption, some would rewrite optics, dismiss astronomy, deny gravity, selectively cite Einstein, and at the same time pretend everyday electronics don't exist. Wouldn't it be simpler to take a step back and reconsider that very assumption? No. Instead, heavy artillery rolls onto the stage, forces that reject optics, physics, and common sense alike. They only demand one thing: complete silence from everyone. Who exactly do they want to silence? Russia? The United States? China? Japan? India? These countries clash constantly through sanctions, trade wars, espionage scandals, and proxy conflicts around the globe. Each has spent decades trying to catch the others in major lies. Yet all five have held on to the same secret about the shape of our planet. Not for a year, not for 10, but for generations. More precisely, it's not just five. Those are only the biggest players. Add the European Space Agency, Brazil, Israel, and private contractors. Thousands of engineers. And not a single defector with convincing documents in 50 years. And all of this? For what? In 2017, NASA's budget hovered around $19 billion. That sounds like a lot. Now compare that to Forbes' valuation of Instagram during the same period, between $25 and $50 billion. A photo app with filters was worth twice as much as the entire space agency. If the goal is money, there's no need for a grand conspiracy. Just build a user-friendly feed. But here's an inconvenient fact. People understood that Earth is a sphere 2,000 years before NASA even existed. Eratosthenes calculated the planet's circumference using the shadow cast by a stick in Alexandria. You can't exactly classify a stick. Then there's GPS, working on every phone in this room. And the International Space Station, you can spot it with a backyard telescope from your balcony. The choice is clear. On one side, there's a theory that needs a separate patch for every phenomenon. One for the horizon, another for time zones, a different one for eclipses, yet another for gravity, and none of them fit together. On the other side, there's a single, spherical Earth that explains all of this at once, without any switches. Denying it is like watching ice melt in a glass and insisting the water didn't come from it, like claiming it's a glitch in the Matrix, or that your eyes are deceiving you. But the ice will keep melting, and the planet will stay round.